Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us this Friday morning for another session of our Team Research Forum. It's just 10:32, and I can see that there's still people joining us. We're out letting people in from the waiting room. Just a couple of housekeeping reminders. This session is being recorded, so we'll make that available to you in the next week or so. We encourage everyone to make sure your microphones are muted to reduce background noise so we can hear our speakers. And usually if you keep your video off, it kind of helps with the quality of the video that you are going to be receiving too. If you have questions throughout the session, feel free to post them in the chat box, and then we'll have time for a Q&A at the end. So yeah, feel free to start posting questions so that we can start our conversation at the end. Today, we have two guests from DARPA Connect who are going to talk to us a little bit about how to engage with DARPA. We see a lot of funding opportunities coming from DARPA, from Department of Defense, and the feedback that we've gotten from faculty repeatedly is that there's kind of like, it looks like a black hole, right? Like faculty are not, a lot of them familiar with the process. It can be quite different from what we're used to applying to, like NSF or USDA or NIH. So we invited our colleagues, Jennifer Thabet and Jess Resig, to kind of give us a 101 overview of how do we engage with DARPA. If you see a funding opportunity, how do you get started? What do you need to know to be successful? So I'm not going to take more of their time. I'm going to go ahead and let them get started with their presentation. And again, please post your questions in the chat, and we'll get to them at the end of our speaker's presentation. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Anna. Hi, good afternoon, good morning. I'm not sure what time zone you guys are in right now. I'm Jen Thabet, and I am the Program Director of DARPA's Small Business Programs Office. With me is Dr. Jess Resig, who is the Deputy Program Manager of DARPA Connect. And Anna, I think that was a great way to kick off our session, right? Oftentimes we hear there's lots of funding. I don't know how to reach it. I don't know how to get there. I don't know what the keys to success are. And so I was really excited that you guys reached us. Today, we're going to kind of give you a little snapshot. I'll call it a teaser of what DARPA is all about and all the resources that are actually available that are free, complimentary, to help you guys really start working and engaging with DARPA. But before we do that, I think we should kick it off with a video to kind of give you a summary of what DARPA is all about.
Coming to DARPA is like grabbing the nose cone of a rocket and holding on for dear life.
DARPA is a place where if you don't invent the internet, you only get a B.
A DARPA program manager quite literally invents tomorrow.
We are thinking about innovation unconstrained. Where can we go?
Predict what is emerging as threats.
We're looking for the applications that seem impossible.
That passion will be saving lives 5, 10, 15 years from now.
Coming to work every day and being humbled by that.
The innovation and collaboration, it's a team effort.
We're not builders of the ultimate technology.
It's the engineers and scientists at the companies and universities that we fund that ultimately are going to bend metal and write code and deliver these capabilities to the warfighters.
DARPA is not one person or one place. It's a collection of people that are excited about moving technology forward.
All right, thanks, Jess, for playing that video. I love to show that video because it gets me real excited about why we do what we do. But as you can see in there, right, DARPA is all about breakthrough technologies. And the way that we continue that is by reaching out to people like you guys and offering you a good understanding of what we do and how to engage with us. Otherwise, we won't stay ahead of state-of-the-art technology. As you can see from here, right, DARPA's mission is breakthrough technologies and capabilities for national security. Lots of words on this slide, but basically what we are looking for are things that are going to change the impossible into the possible. If you have an idea to break things, to reimagine what we do today, That's the kind of innovation and ideas that we are looking for. We are the high risk, high reward agency, high risk, maybe no reward agency. We are the agency that invests in R&D that may succeed, or we may find that actually there's not a there yet and we have to rethink our research. Let's go to the next slide and we can talk about that a little bit, right? Everybody knows DARPA is responsible for things like Siri, the internet. Sorry, and you're welcome. I don't know how you feel about the internet these days with social media, right? But those were things that we talked about years ago that we knew there was an upcoming need, right? Self-driving cars, position, navigation, and timing, GPS, right? What we're looking for are those next big ideas. You can see across this chart, right? We're investing today for that next generation of research and development. DARPA is really where you start. It's probably never going to be where you end because we don't have labs. We don't make things, we don't buy things, we don't build things. What we do is really fund those R&D, those fundamental early stage ideas, really taking pivotal early investments, early bets to change the impossible into the possible. So how do we do that? Let's see how we're composed. Let's go to the next slide. So DARPA is composed of 6 technical offices, the sciences offices and the systems offices. Right now, there are 6 of them underneath our current director, Dr. Stephanie Tompkins, and these are our current thrust areas. But our thrust areas change from time to time. So this is what the snapshot is today, but I encourage you, if you're interested in DARPA and you don't see a research area or a thrust area that applies to you, keep checking our website. Because what we do at DARPA is rotate program managers in, and our thrusts, they're in for term bases, and our thrusts are pretty much determined by the research that they're interested in pursuing. So take a look at this snapshot, but know that this is not the be-all end-all. What we are really trying to do is holistically serve the warfighter. That is everything from drones and satellites to mental health and awareness. Biotechnology, we're doing a holistic look at the warfighter and their needs. So I'd venture to guess that for many of you listening today, your R&D could actually find a home here. Let's go to the next slide and let's talk a little bit about the uniqueness. Right, that video is pretty, for me, inspiring because it shows we're a different kind of agency. So if we're a different kind of agency, then we actually work a lot differently than most other government agencies, right? We are a $4.1 billion agency. We are the agency that I've already said, right, is a high risk, high reward. We are not afraid to take some big bets if it means that we move that technology needle forward. We are really looking for those revolutionary ideas that are going to change the world. We're not looking for a refining of a widget. We're looking for an idea that's going to disrupt the way that we think about things. And how do we do that, right? We do that by having a program manager-centric agency. And what do I mean? I've already kind of addressed a little. So we rotate our program managers in. Our program managers come in for term bases. They're here on average about 3 to 5 years. And we do that intentionally. We do that because you can't stay ahead of state-of-the-art technology by having the same people sitting in the seat. You really need an influx, a constant influx of new ideas. That's why our thrust areas are constantly changing. So when you take a look at our website, if you don't see an area that we're interested in, you should still reach out because maybe it's one we haven't thought of. And maybe you won't be a performer. Maybe you will come to DARPA and be the next program manager. That happens. But we are a pretty unique agency. We also at the bottom, a key point is that we do a lot of just-in-time topic development. We do that with our programs, our challenges, and our smaller efforts, which I'll get to in a minute. But why that's important is we're not sort of hung up on palm cycles and having to make sure we're palming for funding years out. We get our budget each year, and we have a general idea of where we want to go, but then our program managers take it in all different directions. We're not beholden to funding that we can't access for years out. So we are really looking for those ideas now, and we're looking to fund those. Before we go on to the next one, because I am the Small Business Programs Officer, I want to always keep this on here. We do have a very active SBIR and STTR program, and that is a great entry pathway, and I'll get to that in a second. But just so you know, we do about $130 million on average for our SBIR and STTR programs. And those budget numbers are kind of where we start, but because our program managers are so active, they're rarely where we end, and we get a lot of outside funding. So those are great ways to think about engaging with DARPA. And so let's go to that next slide. And let's talk about that for a minute, right? There's three main ways to work with DARPA. Our programs, right? Those are our larger, multidisciplinary, multi-year efforts. Many of those have multiple performers, a prime and multiple subs for each one of the proposal teams. They're large. They can be anywhere from maybe 2 to 5 years. And then that middle column, right, is our challenges. Our challenges are really designed to answer some quicker questions. We actually have two that we're currently working right now, the DARPA Triage Challenge and the AICC, the AI Cyber Challenge. In fact, the AI Cyber Challenge, we just did semifinals in August at Black Hat and DEF CON, and then next year we'll do finals at Black Hat and DEF CON. And what kind of makes those challenges so exciting for me is that oftentimes businesses, small businesses, new businesses form to respond to challenges. And so that gives a great entry point for people that have never really worked with us to kind of work with DARPA. And then that last column, is what I always like to focus on, especially as the small business program manager for the agency, right? These are our smaller efforts, smaller in dollar size, but not smaller in importance. We have our seedlings, our SIBR STTR program, and our explorations. And really what those are smaller efforts that typically will give our program managers an idea or a starting point for a larger DARPA program. They are a great entry point for university professors, for spin out, and for if you started a small business. I encourage you, and we're going to go through this more in the presentation, to really listen and then do some more research on some of these small business entry points, because they're a great way to kind of dip your toe in the water and figure out how to work with us. Let's go to the next slide. Speaking of which, as I'm going to turn this over to Jess in a minute, and as we kind of go through this, everybody likes to think about the way to work with the government is to be a performer. I'm sure many of you listening online, you may be university professors or whatnot, or maybe young postdocs. But I encourage you as we start going through this presentation to realize that there are lots of other opportunities in addition to being a performer with DARPA, and we'll go through some of those. But a lot of times we find our program managers from doing these talks or from our performer base. We also have a Young Faculty Award program, which the solicitation for that for the new year just dropped. So I encourage you to look on sam.gov for that. And that is for young faculty. We have an Innovation Fellows program, which we just started about 2 years ago for young postdocs. It's a 2-year fellowship program to work at DARPA to help support some of those smaller efforts. And then there's other ways to engage, being a support contractor to DARPA, or maybe doing working on a larger program as a teaming partner. So as we kind of go through the talk today, kind of listen with that eye to see, or that ear, to see if there's other ways that we can engage. So with that, I'm going to turn this over to Jeff to kind of go through some of those details.
Great, thanks, Jen. So as we think about some of the specific opportunities for you to engage, especially where you're seated in a university environment, the first funding opportunity we really wanted to dig into a bit deeper are the Advanced Research Concepts, or ARCs. This is one of DARPA's newest funding opportunities, and it's really designed to ask really big what-if questions. So these are meant to be shorter funding opportunities, 6 to 9 months of funding an FTE up to $300,000 around a series of really high impact topics. So it's an opportunity for you to think about an entry point into DARPA to ask really high risk questions, to give you an opportunity to work with the agency. And these can grow into other potential areas that DARPA could then explore moving forward. So we've had PhD students even successfully apply for and receive ARC funding. It's a great streamlined contracting process. So for folks who are interested in applying, ARCs ask you to submit an abstract. And then if you're invited to submit a full proposal, it's actually a presentation. And you would submit a presentation package and then have a 30-minute call with the ARC evaluation team. So, as you think about applying for funding, if you find it to be intimidating, or some of the bigger solicitations may ask for a much more complex or robust proposal package, the ARCs give you a much more streamlined way to submit and apply. So I would encourage you to check those out. I will be talking about the DARPA Connect curriculum soon, but I'll mention here that we do have a new curriculum piece on these ARC topics that walk you through step by step how to apply and some tips and strategies for proposal success specifically related to those ARCs. The ARC topics are managed by DARPA's Innovation Fellows. So this is a program designed for new PhDs within the first 5 years of having attained your PhD. So for those of you who are maybe young faculty or who have new PhD students or PhD students who are reaching the end of their degree program, this is a really great opportunity to get some exposure to what it's like to work at DARPA. So it's a 2-year fellowship and really gives you the opportunity to manage that ARC portfolio. So you have those high impact exploratory efforts. You get to work with the program managers in the agency. You get to work with the performers and get some exposure and an opportunity to see what it's like to be a program manager and potentially grow into that role in the future. So if that's of interest, there are resources available on the DARPA.mil website or DARPA Connect, and we'd be happy to help support you through that process. And then the third opportunity I'll mention at this point is the Young Faculty Award. So Jen mentioned that this opportunity did just drop. So if you go to sam.gov, you can see more details about DARPA's Young Faculty Award program. But it's a funding opportunity for you to work directly with a DARPA program manager. It gives you an opportunity to explore new and novel ideas. I think something new on this solicitation is that they're doing open topics. So an opportunity for you to bring your innovative research ideas to the agency, and you can see the funding opportunities outlined here. So really great ways to engage from the university perspective. These are some of the higher impact opportunities that we can help support you through. And if you're interested in learning more about how the agency functions, to dig deeper into the organizational structure or learn more about some of those high risk, high reward initiatives, we do have a curriculum piece here. The QR code will take you to DARPAConnect.us. We'll be talking a bit more about that later in the session, but this will give you some additional guidance about what DARPA is and does, and a deeper dive into the DARPA 101. So really, as you think about how best to engage, if you're mulling over your research portfolio and trying to think about where you may have potential entry points with DARPA, one of the best first steps for you is to think about how you might engage with the DARPA program manager. So with that, Jen, I'll turn it back over to you to share some insights about how to engage with DARPA PMs.
Yeah, thanks, Jess. Yeah, Anna actually set us up really nicely when she talked in the beginning, right, about we don't know where to begin. And, at DARPA, I talked about the fact that we have program managers rotating in for 3 to 5 years. But what I didn't mention yet is that we only have about 115 on average DARPA program managers. So what does that mean for you guys? That means there's not 10 people at DARPA doing the exact same thing. That means if you use our website, it's easy to figure out what a program manager's interest is. Let's go to this next slide. And why that's so important is program managers get ideas for programs, seedlings, ARC topics, SIBRs, STTRs by having conversations with people like you. I know at other agencies it can be daunting. You don't know who to contact or how to reach somebody, but here we really want you to connect with us. Now, I love to show this slide because this slide shows the path from idea to program, right? And it is a huge mountain that our program managers have to climb in order to get from an idea to contracting. But what I always like to focus in on is that green space, that real long green space from the time that PM discusses with an office director their idea to when they start funneling their ideas and making their slides and going up to presentation. That's that space for you all. That's where program managers really need to do their research and have conversations with you guys to figure out where they're going, and is what they're doing disruptive enough? Is it an idea that DARPA is really going to pursue? Our director likes to say that if all of our programs are successes, we are not pushing ourselves far enough and hard enough. So we really rely on you to help fill in that green space before the PMs start climbing that mountain, so to speak, and getting their new idea into a program seedling, SIBR, or whatnot, and out on the street. Let's go to the next slide for a minute, right? You know, part of that is how to engage with the program manager. Oftentimes I'm hearing professors, young faculty chatting with me and saying, hey, Jen, I've written an email and I just haven't heard back. And oftentimes what I'm hearing is that they have sent a 10-page email to a program manager. They have created brand new white papers, multiple slide decks, and sent it over. And in a way, I'd like to say, well, I applaud that enthusiasm. It's probably information overload for our program managers. Our program managers speak in what we call the Hallmeyer Catechism. George Hallmeyer was a DARPA director from the 70s, and he came up with what was 7 questions and is now condensed to 5. And it's really how all of our DARPA program managers are trained to think and speak. And in fact, when they are asking for a program to be approved, they have to go and answer these questions to their office director and then the agency director and deputy. And so it's always best to kind of understand these questions a little bit. And when you want to reach out and engage with the program manager, to kind of structure an email to them answering these 5 questions. I always say, don't reinvent the wheel. Don't create a specific white paper just for these program managers. Answer these questions in an email. And I like to say that one screen of an iPhone, because they travel so much, should really try to capture your idea or get their interest. We'll get to DARPA Connect in a minute. I'm super excited about that because they're going to teach you about how to do this. Let's go to the next slide for a minute. Here's just some advice for you all, right? We really do want you to engage with program managers. I like to tell new professors or young professors, right, that oftentimes a lot of the work that you can do up front to understand and learn the agency is probably just as, if not more valuable than the work that you put into a proposal. Because if you really understand the agency, or in our case, if you understand what is motivating the program manager, then once you put a proposal in, your proposal is going to be that much stronger. It really does make sense, and it really does pay dividends if you can do some of that work up front, right? And so I always kind of like to put the slide in to kind of give you that feedback, to kind of think about some things. And everything is available on our website, DARPA.mil. We have all of our program managers listed. And a little tip I like to tell people is, if you've looked at our website and you don't see a PM that's in your area, check back in a few weeks, and there's a special tab on our website that says new program managers that have been added. So you can click on that to see who the newest program managers are. But the real takeaway is, for us, we don't want you to be afraid to engage with us. We really want you to reach out. So with that, let's go to the next slide. Because I know that can be kind of daunting. And I know that oftentimes agencies say, we want you to reach out, we want you to connect. And then I hear from people, well, I did and I didn't hear back, or, you know, I put a Hallmeyer together, but I really don't know where to start. And my director likes to say that what keeps her up at night is not all the scary things that she knows about. It's the fact that she knows there are untapped innovators like you. She knows there are great ideas out there that we are not hearing because you don't know how to work and how to engage with us. Let's face it, the government, we are unfortunately making it a little harder to work with us these days, and so we need to counter that. And so our response to that is DARPA Connect. And with that in mind, we started DARPA Connect, a free resource to you all that Jess runs to really help partner with you as you begin your DARPA journey, and really help you from that first initial touch point with the program manager to hopefully helping you with some proposal tips and tricks to make you successful. So with that, Jess, I don't want to steal your thunder because I love this program. I could talk forever. Let's have you chat about it, and then we can get to some questions.
All right, it sounds great. Thank you. I think as we get this kicked off, I'll start us with a brief video overview that'll give you some context from Dr. Tompkins's perspective, as well as some insights from others about the value of the program. So we'll start with that.
There are a lot of problems in the world. The one that really keeps me up at night is the fact that the ideas that might be out there which could solve those problems and those threats to national security, we might actually never hear or might be missing entirely.
It can be really overwhelming and daunting to work with a government agency. You don't know where to begin. You don't know how to find your resources.
We often use the phrase DARPA hard to describe the difficult and really transformational work that we do as an agency. The process of actually coming to DARPA and getting their ideas to us or giving us their solutions to the problems that we propose should not be DARPA hard. DARPA Connect is a comprehensive program. It offers a whole variety of different services, pop-up events all around the country, workshops, educational opportunities, online curriculum, customized coaching and networking, and it's going to continue to evolve. So DARPA Connect really is designed to help us surface those bright ideas, some of the very brightest minds.
To tap those untapped resources, we're looking for young professors. We're looking for small businesses, maybe even parts of large businesses that haven't yet engaged with DARPA. We're looking for those great ideas and trying to empower them to work with us.
Okay, so that gives you a sense of what the program is designed to do and some background on why we were really formed. I like to describe DARPA Connect as the front door to the agency. We're really meant to be an entry point for you to think about how to engage and where to engage and who best to connect with and how to be effective in this space. So as you think about how DARPA Connect is situated, we're really meant to be that connector for points both within and outside DARPA. So we work really closely with the technical offices and the program managers. We meet with them often. We provide them with resources inside the agency to help them connect with researchers on the outside. And then, in parallel, we offer a variety of different tools and resources to folks who are new to the agency to help them understand how to work with DARPA. So how do we do that? We offer a variety of different resources. Dr. Tompkins mentioned our pop-up events, our regional pop-up events. In fact, just yesterday, she approved our 2025 locations. So stay tuned. Those will be available soon. We look forward to sharing locations and dates on where we'll be in 2025. But we also offer a variety of virtual events, and I'll talk a bit more about those. But we have a monthly cadence where we try to really engage on a variety of topics that are relevant to new potential performers and folks learning the mechanics of how to work with the agency. DARPA Connect also offers a variety of networking opportunities. We have a series of different training opportunities, both on demand and real time, and then customized support and mentoring to really meet you where you are on your DARPA journey. I will say, if there are any of you who've worked with DARPA before, we can still be a resource for you, and we're still designed to help you increase your effectiveness with the agency. So we've heard from folks who have maybe submitted to DARPA in the past and had unsuccessful proposals, or folks who've been DARPA performers for a long time, and they find our tools and resources, and they're able to leverage them to really improve the quality of the work that they're doing with the agency. So just something to keep in mind as you're thinking about where this fits with you. Even if you've worked with DARPA before, DARPA Connect can be an excellent resource for you to leverage. So you'll see the DARPAconnect.us URL here at the bottom. We'll be talking a bit more about that, but this is really the central hub for everything we do. So as I talk about each of the components of the program, I would encourage you to keep that URL in mind, as that'll be the home base for all of this information. So the first I'll talk through for you are our DARPA Connect pop-up events. These are full-day events that we offer throughout the country that are really meant to walk you through the DARPA journey, starting with the DARPA 101 and how to engage with program managers, through to understanding DARPA contracting, introductions to DARPA security and teaming, and then lastly, proposal success tips, and strategies for success. There are networking opportunities built in throughout the day. We typically bring a full team of DARPA program managers, office leadership, program directors, and then support contractors as well as staff. So we really bring a robust, well-rounded team of representation from DARPA to help answer the questions that you have about how to engage with the agency. So it's an excellent opportunity for you both to network with folks regionally who may be interested in working with DARPA, as well as with the DARPA presenters themselves. Our last remaining pop-up for 2024 is in Albany. It's coming up fast on November 14th. We're hoping to close registration at the end of next week. Those slots are nearly filled at this point. I realize that Albany, New York is a bit of a hall for those of you in California. However, this is also available virtually, and I would encourage you to sign up if you're interested. So even if you're not able to listen to the full day, the recording will be available to registrants as well. So if you're interested in being able to catch these sessions, I would definitely encourage you to register as a virtual attendee. I already mentioned DARPAConnect.us is the home base for the work that we do. It's also a robust online community. So we're up over 6,000 members at this point of individuals who've joined DARPA Connect to leverage our learning opportunities. So we've got a fully online curriculum that I'll walk you through here momentarily. We also have a library of all of our past event archives, so you can look back through and check out all of the events that we've hosted to date. There's a full directory of members, so if you're looking for opportunities to find folks who have similar interests to yours and maybe interested in teaming on some DARPA work, you're able to do that here. And this is also the best spot to visit to contact the DARPA Connect team. So there's a contact us form on the site, or you can email us directly, and all of that information is available from DARPAConnect.us. So this is really that first stop for you to get started and to connect with our team. And one of the things I've mentioned a few times at this point is that customized curriculum. So we have a variety of standalone units online that you can go to anytime to learn more about how best to work with the agency. The topics are growing all the time, so we have an expanding list of lessons that are really meant to be a just-in-time resource for you. Half hour or less, something quick that you can read through, watch some videos, but to learn how to engage from a variety of different perspectives. So for example, if you are not a US citizen, but you're curious about how best to work with DARPA, there's a global participation and engagement lesson. So one thing that the agency emphasizes is even if you're not a US citizen, or maybe your research teaming partners are in other countries or distributed globally, there are still plenty of opportunities to still work with and engage with DARPA, and that lesson will walk you through some of the resources available to you there. Jen gave you a quick teaser about the SBIR and STTR programs, but we've got a full lesson online about those where you can go to learn more about that program. One of the key opportunities to really team and get to know folks who are working in similar research areas to your own are DARPA Proposer Days. So anytime a program manager puts out a new program, they'll typically offer a proposer day where they, share information about the program, and folks who are interested in proposing will get together. Those are excellent networking opportunities, but if you've not been to one before, it can be intimidating to know how best to prepare. We've got a lesson for that that'll walk you through exactly how to make the most of a proposer's day and make sure that you're ready. So I'd encourage you to check these out. There's a ton of information, and as I mentioned, they're growing all the time. And they're a great one-stop shop for you to get a high-level overview of the agency from a variety of perspectives. One thing I'll mention at this point too is that we take feedback really seriously, and so we recognize that these tools are meant to be a resource that meets your needs. So if you look at this list and you visit the site and you're still seeing gaps or areas where you'd love to have more information and it's not there yet, there's feedback forms on every one of these lessons. There are opportunities to submit your feedback, both through the curriculum site, or you can reach to us directly. We love to learn about what would be most helpful to you, and we can tailor those resources to meet those needs. So by all means, send that feedback. We'd love to learn what else would be useful for you here as well. In addition to the just-in-time resources, we did the pop-ups. What we found about the pop-ups was that it's a ton of information. It was really helpful for folks, but then they would go home and life would get in the way. And, you go back 2 weeks later and you think, what did they tell me during that one session? So the just-in-time lessons were meant to be something you can go back to anytime you need it. But, what we really found that people benefited from tremendously was some real world connection. How could we build in opportunities for people to still have the human touch on a regular cadence to ask their questions and get the details and information that they need? And that's when the DARPA Connect Corner was born. So the Connect Corner is our webinar series. We have a variety of different session types that we offer on a monthly basis. The webinars in the top corner here are our topical 1-hour offerings that really focus on the mechanics of how to work with DARPA. So for example, coming up on the 30th, we have a webinar dedicated to intellectual property and understanding IP and working with DARPA. Oftentimes, people have the misconception that the government is trying to take their information, right? And we're really trying to emphasize that the government or DARPA's philosophy is they will only ask for what they absolutely need. And it's a negotiation process as you work through IP with the agency. So I would definitely encourage you, if that's of interest, to log in and register. It's a great chance for you to learn more. But our webinars are topical. All of the recordings from past sessions are available, and we're offering new ones all the time. So keep an eye out for those. Our Ask Me Anything sessions, similarly, they're 1 hour. But these are really meant to be an open Q&A in a group setting. So we'll pick something topical. For example, in September, we did an Ask Me Anything about DARPA security. We had a lot of questions around, is all of DARPA's work classified? Do I need to have a facilities clearance? Or what are the rules around working with DARPA? So we offer these Ask Me Anything sessions as a chance for folks to really dig in and get those questions answered. If you're looking for more of a one-on-one environment, you have specific questions or you want some guidance that's tailored to you and the work that you're doing, our office hours are quick 10-minute drop-ins where you can get a one-on-one session with a member of the DARPA Connect team to answer your questions. Those 10-minute sessions are just meant to be, how do I work with the agency? Where do I go? What do I do? How do I get started? If you have an idea and you're ready to actually reach to a program manager and you want some deeper feedback, our one-on-one coaching sessions are 30-minute private sessions that give you the chance to showcase maybe your draft of the Hellmeyer Catechism or your current research, and to think about whether it's a fit for DARPA, where it might be a fit for DARPA, and how to take those first steps with reaching out to the agency. So you can see we've got a variety of different session types available. All of this information, again, is available on DARPAConnect.us, but would encourage you to check those out. Our office hours and one-on-one coaching sessions are offered on a weekly basis, and there's new slots opening all the time. At the end of the day, what it really comes down to is making sure that we're offering customized support for your DARPA journey. So meeting you wherever you are, helping to guide you through that process, whether it's the mechanics of how the agency is put together, how best to reach to a program manager, or making that impactful first impression, and then how to frame your ideas using the Hellmeyer Catechism. You're always welcome to email us directly at DARPAConnect@darpa.mil. That'll get to our team, and we're happy to support answering any questions that you might have. Or as I mentioned earlier, you can visit the website and use the Contact Us form to get in touch. So with that, I'll leave this up so you can grab that URL. But I think at this point, Jen, unless you have any closing thoughts, we can probably open it up for questions.
No, Jess, I think that was great. I hope we have some questions, and I hope we have some new community members at DARPA Connect.
Thank you, Jess and Jen. So let's start with the questions. Anyone want to get started?
Can we do this by audio?
Yes, absolutely. Just I would ask you to use the raise your hand so I don't miss you, but go ahead, Richard.
I'm trying to see where I am down there. Anyway, thanks. This was really wonderfully encouraging. I did have a question, and I'm sure you can't answer it because I'll bet the numbers don't make sense in sort of NIH format, but what is the success rate of an application? Are we talking about a 1% hit or 30% if it sounds good, or, where are we in terms of reality?
So that's a great question. It is one that I do not have exact answers to give you. That is correct. But what I can tell you is that the probability for success is greatly increased if you engage with program managers ahead of time. Taking advantage of using DARPA Connect to make those connections with program managers and help you craft that first touch point with them. You could be giving them their idea for their next program, SIB or Seedling, or whatnot. And the other thing that I always encourage people to do, especially if you've ever had an STTR, for example, or a SIBR, right, is when you're making those connections with the program managers, what I always encourage is that you write down in that Hellmeyer email all the places where you are eligible for either a second or first phase 2 for an STTR or a phase 3. If you help with the easy button with the program managers, right, and say, hey, this is where you could pick me up, or here's my Hallmeyer and here's an attached white paper. And they may say, go ahead and drop the white paper in our office-wide BAA, which brings me to something. Each of our technical offices has what we call an open BAA outlined by thrust. If you're invited to put something in there, your chances of success greatly increase.
Great, thank you.
Oh, I think you may be muted.
Apologies. So while we wait for other people to raise their hand or post a question, we have quite a few staff, research development staff here. And I saw you have the one-on-one coaching for PIs, but is there any support for staff who is helping or helping researchers put together their proposal when there's questions around the administrative side, like budgets, for example?
Yes. So one thing I will say is once a solicitation is open, they're all given a specific email address that goes back to the team supporting that solicitation. And so if your support staff have questions that are specific to a proposal that's actively in development, we always encourage them to go directly to the DARPA team supporting that program. DARPA Connect is really designed to give you high-level guidance, and we're happy to help. We've got some proposal tips and strategies. I have met with business development teams. I meet with, university offices of sponsored programs to give some general guidance and support. But as soon as you start doing specific proposal development, we always encourage you to reach back to those support emails to make sure that you get the correct answer for that solicitation.
Thank you. We have a question in the chat box. It says, how do DARPA contracts differ from those at NSF or NIH? I've heard that the funding can be less stable, so that DARPA can pool the funding at any time's notice. And this is something that question that we get often too. So is that true? Can just faculty lose their funding from one year to the next or in between?
So we do tend to do incremental funding, but we recognize that that can be a little challenging, but we are very different from NSF and NIH. We are incrementally funding, and there are milestones and check-ins. But at DARPA, the program managers are really partnering with their performers. So when things may end up getting cut, it probably is not a surprise. It's probably something that the researcher has realized, hey, the research may be not going in the way that we thought it was going to go. But what we're trying to do to address that is to have smaller, shorter duration programs. And then if they prove successful, then what our deputy likes to say is he'll pour gasoline on it and add funding to it to make it a little more predictable. But it is not as if the funding would be canceled at a moment's notice, right? There is notice that your option maybe will not be exercised. And we do what we can to help you with transition. And by explanation, right, for an example of that, right, I had a program manager that ended up not going forward with an option on a contract that they were working on, not because the idea wasn't great, because it was. It just turned out it actually wasn't a DARPA hard idea anymore. So we really couldn't fund it because it wasn't impossible. It was actually possible. And so we worked with that performer to try to get that research picked up by another government agency to continue those efforts. The program managers, many of them come from academia or from industry, so they take this very seriously. They are not willy-nilly cutting funding just to meet a bottom line. When they make the tough decision that they're going to have to cut funding, it is really because the research may not be there anymore. But we do what we can to try to help transition so that that technology continues to grow.
Thank you. Richard has had his hand up again. Richard?
Sure, thanks. I'm self-interestedly curious about the salary level. Is there a cap like NIH, or is sky's the limit, right?
The salary level for who?
Well, for
program managers.
If you are an investigator and you work 10%, let's say, on the project, what's your salary line?
really can't answer that. I think it varies, but the program managers partner with our contracting officers to do a review to make sure that the cost is fair and reasonable. But know that DARPA runs on research, so we're not shocked by a lot of things when we see proposals.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you. Here's another interesting question that we discuss a lot. Do the proposed ideas need to be pitched as having military application? And we've talked to people a lot about dual purpose, but can you talk a little bit more about that?
So I think you can, in the call, right, in the BAA or in the grants.gov posting or in the SIBR topic, right, we're telling you where we think this is going to go. And I encourage you to think maybe less about military application and more about holistically serving the warfighter, right? And by that, I mean, for an example, we did a study, we did a small program about 5 or so years ago in our biological technologies office studying PTSD, because warfighters were 7 times more likely to die by suicide if they had been to theater than the average US citizen. So in there, I'm not sure that you would think that that was a military application, but that was holistically serving the warfighter. So I would encourage you to really, when you're thinking about your research, think about that holistic warfighter and how it fits in there.
The program managers will also mention too that, you know, you may have a really unique and interesting idea, but you may not know that defense application necessarily because you don't have that defense background. That's where those early conversations can be tremendously helpful, because the program manager may have a good sense of where they think that idea may plug in, and they can help to kind of craft where that potential might fit. So we do encourage folks in that initial outreach to at least have given thought to the defense applications, but just know that the program managers will have specific ideas and places where they may be able to plug in as well.
Yeah, Jess, that's a great point. And I'll just close that out by saying a lot of times I find that these engagement discussions, these proposers or potential proposers aren't even casting their net wide enough. I had a conversation with a young business who had genetically modified wool to burn at a higher temperature, and she was absolutely convinced it was a climate change solution problem. And I kind of looked at her and I said, well, that actually says to me that that could solve problems with uniforms. And maybe you need to rethink and expand your net a little bit more. So it is a good thing to have these conversations with program managers, because they will help you come up with ideas or applications that you never even thought. So cast that wide net and be open to hearing what they have to say.
Thank you. We have another question about budget. Our budget forms for all DARPA proposals the same? So is that, or does it change by program? I'm assuming it changes by program.
It does change. Like my SBIR and SPTR has their own proposal cost templates, but that information is given out with the broad agency announcement.
Okay. Any additional questions? More questions from our audience? You have questions about any particular program?
As folks are thinking about those, one thing I'll mention is there is a standard cost template. Not every program uses it, but you may see it more often than not. But what's really important to recognize is the value of reading through with a really close, careful eye, the full solicitation and all of the templates provided, because DARPA really does walk you through those requirements in detail. So that's one of the really key primary recommendations we often make is, you know, if you're considering proposing, make sure that you read that solicitation cover to cover and that you pay close attention to the templates as well.
Any more questions? We still have a few minutes to go. Well, it seems we've kind of like answered everyone's questions so far. So why don't we give people back 9 minutes?
All right, I have one last question.
Go ahead, Richard.
Another reality check. Let's say we have a great idea today. When do we get the money?
Oh, that's always a good
what's the gap?
question.
Sorry, what's the gap between our first contact and potential funding success? A month, a year,
Okay.
10 years?
I'm going to give you an answer that you're not going to like, and
All
I'm
right.
going to say that it depends. It depends on whether you are being awarded a program, whether you're being awarded a SIBR, an STTR, a seedling, or an ARC topic. It really depends. But DARPA very much takes seriously the fact that contracting can take too long. So as an example, this year for the SIBR and STTR program for phase 1, DARPA does about $250,000 for a phase 1, and we started issuing purchase orders. And I can get you a purchase order in about 2 weeks as long as you're responsive to my contracting shop. We have some other different funding mechanisms. I know that some of our disruptioneering will post the contract terms online when they're posting their topic BAAs, and they say these are the contract terms, and we will get you on contract in 90 days. The only thing we really have to negotiate is IP data rates. And then there's other ones that are larger efforts that unfortunately they do take a lot of time. But so it really just depends on the type of funding, the size of the program that you are responding to, but they do take it seriously because I do know it is a problem. And if you think about what we do with our mission to stay ahead of state-of-the-art technology, it does not help us if it takes us a year to get you on contract. So we do what we can to make that process go quicker. But the one tip I will tell you is always respond to your contracts officers when they reach to you. Oftentimes I'm finding the holdup is not necessarily from the contracts officers, is that we are waiting for the PI, the company, to be responding to the contract officer. And if the answer is simply, I'm not sure about that information, reach out to them and let them know so they can kind of help you with that.
Thank you.
All right. Well, I think that exhausts our audience questions for today. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. We're going to post the recording, and feel free to reach out to Jess and Jen at DARPA Connect with your questions, or reach out to our team at Strategic Initiatives, and if we can help you match up with opportunities at DARPA or additional resources on campus to help you with your proposal. Thank you again. Have a wonderful weekend.